Now, I'd just like to ask Dr. Bark a little bit specifically about autism. Um, Autism seems to be just one factor in the decline of our children's health. Do we need to stop talking about it as a separate issue, but also raise attention for the alarming increases in so many conditions from diabetes, seizure disorder, asthma, allergies, bowel disease, all the things that are plaguing our children? Do we need to look at all of these things as one issue?
I think we should look at all of these things as one issue. And the reason I say that, there's power in numbers. That's one reason. But it's becoming a thicker and thicker society, right? So we've got a lot of autoimmune disease. I mean, the immunity is mind-boggling, in fact. Why is our turning out such numbers? And I see autism as, it's on the same spectrum as Asperger's and obsessive compulsive disorder and sensory integrative issues and pervasive life. And so it really behooves us to band together as concerned parents, concerned academics, concerned people in the society. Why do we have such a sick society? This isn't, I'm sorry, it's not you don't have genetic outcomes like this statistically overnight. That's ridiculous. There are genetic predispositions to how you express being toxic, right? So, there might be a genetic predisposition to how you express autoimmunity. Some families will all have colitis, ulcerative colitis or Crohn's. Other families will have asthma and eczema and psoriasis, and other families might have, rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. But so there's genetic predispositions, but forget that. You need to have environmental triggers. Why do we have so many environmental triggers? The environment, including not just the air and the water and the soil, but vaccination, things that are injected into us that have all kinds of crap in them that aren't studied with true placebos. So we can't make a risk-benefit assessment because the risk, you can't make a risk-benefit assessment. And vaccines don't ever get compared to real placebos, right? So how can you make a risk assessment in that? Drugs that are given, antibiotics for everything, it's ridiculous. And the food, GMOs, all kinds of GMOs, when the statistics, the studies on the mice and rat models are not good with GMO. It's not the pesticide, it's actually the GMO grain itself is much worse for these laboratory animals than pesticide-laden food. So we have a lot of what I would call microglial activation, probably from vaccination, but probably vaccination in a combination of things, but and can cause inflammation and activation of the microglials, which is the brain's immune cells. And when they're chronically activated, there's a lot of destruction and oxidative damage that happen in the neurons. And oxidative damage, the reason that the brain cells and the nervous system in general is so predisposed to oxidative damage is that it's 60% fat. And fat's very susceptible to oxidative damage. You get lipid peroxidase. So that is why the neurological system is so sensitive and declines in people that are exposed to environmental toxins at a greater degree than other systems in the body. Is that we're not going to be government doing anything about it because the government is in bed with the industry, with the food industry, with the gas and oil and the fracking industry, with the this is who is our government. The government, we elect our official agents by these people, whether it's at the, at your local hill or at the next bill they bring to you. If you don't push this bill through, you will not be there next election cycle. So it comes down to politicians are basically they're not representing our voice. They're representing industry's voice. And industry's voice is very happy with having a sick society because that makes us chronic customers, right? We are captive audience. If people eat GMO and they become chronically ill, then they need medication and they need it chronically. And it's that's a win-win situation for investors and the board, right? For whatever company, especially if you happen to have subsidiaries of your company which is involved in food and it's involved in drugs, and chemicals. I mean, it's really a win-win for the industries. And it's a lose-lose for society. And society is asleep. Either they feel like they can't change this or they're asleep and are very unaware of the absolute control that all these industries have in running our government at the state and federal level. But a lot of us aren't asleep, and a lot of us are aware, and that's why I feel, the Canary Party, some of these organizations, the Canary Party is a political party, it's great, and we need to get everybody involved and say we're going to elect our own officials to run for office, and they're not going to kowtow to the pharmaceutical industry or to Monsanto or to for Halliburton. They're not. They're gonna work for us, for the people who are tired of being indentured servants to the pharmaceutical industry. That's who they're going to work for, and that's really what we need to do. So it's beneficial for all these chronic diseases that are becoming more and more prevalent, that are new, the autoimmune diseases that we see our children suffer from. It's really beneficial that we look at all of them under an umbrella and say these are man-made diseases. They're being caused by our industry's interests and not our own interests, and so we need to change something. And that's the only way we're going to get ahead.
Okay. Kind of along the same line, as far as we are in an epidemic of autism, as much as officials won't admit it, and how dire this is for society.
Well, how can they not admit it? I mean, if you're a boy in New Jersey, it's 1 out of what, 27? One boy out of 27 has autism. How do officials not? Who doesn't admit we're in an epidemic? I mean, that makes no sense to me. When I was a child, it was 1 in 20,000. In the 60s, it was like 1 in 20,000, then it went to 1 in 10,000. And then we had this huge jump after the Hep B was introduced day 1 of life into 1 in, 2,000. I mean, that was that first giant jump that we saw, like in the late 80s, early 90s. Who can it say this is not an epidemic? To say that it's recognized better, really? Then where's all the autistic adults walking around? Really, if it's recognized better, and there's always been 1 in 27 men in New Jersey who are autistic, where are all those adults? Where are they?
That is something I've been saying over and over thousands of times for about 10 years. But my question is this. Now, as these children age out of school, and we know there's this huge bubble going to come, and it's going to hit us like a tsunami of disabled young adults aging out of school with nowhere to go. What is it? I can't imagine what's going to happen. Obviously,
it's a job creator. Oh, that's what it's a job creator.
The thing is, somebody's going to pay for these kids.
Special schools that are created, special group housing. Oh, we'll be paying for it, the taxpayers. So there's all this stuff being created, out of this problem, and the taxpayers will pay for it.
Do you think they'll ask why it's happening, why there isn't anything already for these people if they've always been here?
Right. Well, if they've always been here, then they'll just do what they've always been doing. But we know they haven't always been here.
See, and I feel like that's the thing is going to expose the truth. That suddenly we have, and not only just disabled adults who are going to need care, but disabled adults who are going to be dangerous, that they're going to commit crimes. There's going to be this massive cost to society. It may be a job creator, but it's also going to be a huge cost to society. I have friends.
Well, I said that. I don't believe that's a good thing. I mean, I said that, talking facetiously. I mean, that's the upside, right? I mean, we see it's a win-win for industry, period. We're starting to see the privatization of schools, the privatization of jails, right? I mean, this is all part of it. So, the industry is backing the privatization of schools because you're going to start seeing all these schools created for these kids. It's, again, money out of the pockets of middle America. We're always footing the bill for industry to make big money. It's not going to change. This is what's going on. This is what's going to continue to go on. Big industry will have special schools, special, holding places for these kids who will be adults. And, even if they're forget about like them being, it's not a danger issue. It's dangerous for them. You know, if police have to get special training how to deal with kids who are autistic, right? Because it's shoot to kill. Everyone's assuming now everyone's carrying concealed weapons in most states. You know, that's the plan, right? For the NRA wants everyone to be carrying concealed weapons, and every state should allow it in every city. And so if you're a cop and you're under that assumption and somebody's acting wild out of the norm and you feel threatened, you're going to pull your gun and shoot.
And it's happened. It's happened to these kids.
And stand your ground. You see somebody who looks suspicious and suddenly they act wildly, they act crazy, they're not a little kid anymore, they're a 25-year-old male, you're going to shoot them and say, stand your ground, you felt threatened. And the problems that we're going to have, that we have already, and it's going to get worse, is unimaginable.
Right.
You know, and industry and our government has upon us. And it was the lowest level of health politicians. I mean, you know, these are all bought off. You know, it's terrible. We have the best government money can buy, and boy, has industry bought our government.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I want to thank you for giving me the time and making the comments that you did. I'm very grateful to know you're out there, and I hope there'll be more and more doctors like you. Thank you.